Hi, this is Joel from Out in Design Group, and today we're looking at getting started with references in Drupal. You can also check out the related blog post at outinddesigngroup.com. So if you're following along, at the bare minimum, you'll need stock Drupal and the entity references module. So I'll scroll down here on my modules page, and you'll see entity reference. We'll discuss a few others later on, but those are the main two that you need to get started with. And for our example today, we're creating a website for our fake record label, Atten Records. And for this example, I'm using 3 different content types that have relationships to one another. So the entity references module allows you to reference different entities, in our case nodes, and let me show you what that looks like. So if we go into manage fields for an artist and an album, so first we'll see here we have an entity reference for albums. And if we go check out the settings, we can see that our target type is node, and we are targeting the album bundle. So that's the album content type. And then if we go look at our field settings for album, we can see we have a tracks field, and that's also entity reference. And for both of these, we're setting those to an unlimited amount of values. So an artist could have as many albums as they want, and each album could have as many tracks as it needs. So again, the target type is node, and our content type or bundle we're referencing is track. And so now if we wanted to, we could go to add content and start adding content. So the workflow is a little bit funny with this approach without using any additional modules. And if you're reading through my post, you'll see that I definitely make it the recommendation of adding a couple modules to improve this workflow. And we'll go over that in just a second. But say there were no additional modules being used, the workflow would be a little bit weird. It'd be easiest to start by adding our tracks, then adding our album, and then lastly adding the artist. So let's see what that looks like. So this looks very familiar if you've used this approach before. Save it. Add content. Let's add another track. Song 2. Alright, add content. Let's add an album that we can add these tracks to. Alright, and here is the default entity reference field in action. So if we start typing song, it's an autocomplete field, so you can easily find your song title. So remember, we added these just like normal Drupal content, but we can reference them or connect them via the entity reference field tracks here on the album. And now let's go create a new artist. That we can add the album to. So it's a little bit backward and awkward of a process for adding our reference content. We can greatly improve this with a couple modules, one being references dialog and another one inline entity form. As you get more familiar with references, you'll learn that there's several different approaches. In our case here, when we're adding content, we could have added the artist to the album. So the album could have referenced the artist. But you'll see once we enable these two modules, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. So I've already downloaded the modules, and we just need to enable them. So inline entity form and references dialog. At the time of writing this, I had to use a development version of references dialog because of an incompatibility with Drupal 7.28. So keep that in mind. And we'll go ahead and save configuration here. And let's just jump right back to content types and check out. Let's manage fields again for artist and album. So click edit on our entity reference field and there'll be a few new options. So you'll want to check edit dialog, add dialog, and search dialog. And those settings are coming from references dialog. For our tracks field, the widget type is set to inline entity form multiple values. So that's really the only difference on that field. So let's get started by adding a new artist. So different workflow this time. We'll go ahead and fill in a little information so this artist feels loved and taken care of. Alright, so now you'll see this new feature where we can click create album, and it adds this nice modal window directly here on the page. San Francisco is our new album. Choose the artwork here. Alright, and then we can start adding tracks. So this is pretty cool. You can, and this is an example of inline entity form. So we can either add a new node or add an existing node. And so all we're doing here is adding new tracks. For time's sake, let's do a couple of both. So we can do autocomplete, add existing. You get the idea. Or we could add a new one. Track 6. 4 minutes long, and the writer is Mike. And then create. So really straightforward to adding new tracks to the album. And click save. We can add another item. So this could be our second released album, and we could create a new album if we want. Nashville. Let's get some good album artwork here. And for time's sake, we'll just choose an existing song. An existing song too. So it's pretty cool that multiple songs could be on multiple albums if you wanted to, or you could create all the different songs or tracks outside of this workflow if that was your preference. So now our artist has 2 albums. So let's go ahead and click save. So new artist 2, here's their photograph and bio. And then we can see their album, San Francisco, track 1, 5, and 6. And then here's our next album, Nashville, with song 1 and song 2. So really powerful as far as that goes. And real quickly, let's take a look at our display settings for these content types. So if we click on Manage Display for Artist and Album and Track. So for the entity reference fields, I have selected rendered entity and selected that I wanted it to display as the teaser view mode. So now if we go look at album, we can click on teaser view mode here and adjust how that will look. So I modified my thumbnail image I uploaded, and then I'm choosing tracks to also, which is another entity reference field, to be rendered as an entity and rendered as teaser. And if we go to track and click on teaser, we can modify how that will look. So we're showing the length and the writer and the MP3 file if we chose to upload that. So I hope you've enjoyed this quick screencast and learned something new about references and entity references in Drupal.